Hi friends and welcome back to my channel. I realized that there is one video that I've never made, and that video could be considered to be sort of a staple for book readers, booktubers, book reviewers, and that video is my top 10 favorite books of all time. I've never made a list of my all-time favorite books. Perhaps because it's been too difficult. I mean, there are so many out there. I've been putting a lot of thought into this, and I do think that I have a very solid and complete list of my top 10 books. I feel very confident about this actually. So without any further ado, this is my top 10 favorite books of all time. I am going to go through this list from number 1 to number 10. So there's no need for you to wait for my top book of all time, like ever, across all categories. You will get it instantly. Number 1, my all-time favorite book is Twilight by Stephanie Meyer, the first book in the Twilight Saga. This is, of course, the Swedish edition, because that's the edition I read. This is the OG one with the beautiful cover that we all recognize. I think I read this book when I was in 6th or 7th grade. So I think I was 12 the first time I read Twilight. I have read it multiple times since. And for me, it's a beautiful story with characters I love. It's sort of what introduced me to fandoms. I do have a lot of things to be grateful for this book for. It's what introduced me to fandoms, fandom culture, Tumblr, fan fiction, and like also reading in general. It made me super excited about reading and reading more young adult books. And also it introduced me to a lot of music because of the movies. I loved the movie soundtracks, and I feel like the movie soundtracks and then all the fan-made videos that were made for this fandom, they all introduced me to the music I listen to today, basically. It might be a bit intense and people might think it's weird, but I do truly feel like this book and this series sort of shaped me, my entire youth, and who I've become. I think we all know what this story is. It is my all-time favorite book. Easy as that. Number 2 amongst my all-time favorite books. And this is a more recent release, but that is Midnight Sun by Stephanie Meyer. Now, you might be thinking, hey Charlotte, isn't that the same book as Twilight that you just showed us? No, because this is Twilight from Edward's point of view. And if you don't know, Edward is my absolute favorite character in the Twilight Saga. I know many people hate him and have a bunch of things against him, I understand that, but you can also respect that he's my favorite character. When this book was released, it meant so much to me. I read it within 2 days. I was so hyped. Actually, in this release of Twilight that I read, we actually have the first chapter of Midnight Sun in it. So I guess the first few words of Twilight I ever read were Midnight Sun, technically. And I personally love this cover. I know there are haters out there. I think this cover is so cool and epic and gross and amazing. I love it. Not a joke, actually. I love this. Similar story, but Edward's point of view. Number 3 on this list of my all-time favorites. New Moon, the second book in the Twilight Saga. Now, this might come as a surprise because I just said that Edward is my favorite character, and he technically isn't in this one that much. But I feel like for me, it just showed how much the relationship between Bella and Edward, like how much they matter to each other. This was a true test of like their relationship, I guess. It did introduce us to the Volturi, to the wolves, all of that. And every time I read this book, I appreciate it even more, actually. Also, I just want to shout out the Swedish titles of these books because I think they are beautiful. First book is basically called If I Could Dream. This one is called Whenever I Hear Your Voice, so on. It's stunning. So that's the top 3. Gold, silver and bronze. Let's now have a look at number 4 to 10. Number 4 on this list is Eclipse, the third book in the Twilight Saga. Or in Swedish, it's called The Sound of Your Heart. This is where Edward and Bella's relationship get a bit more intense. We're getting some more intrigue. We're introduced to a bunch of new vampires. We get the concepts of newborn vampires. We have the vampires and wolves needing to work together in order to protect Bella. And of course, we have some more steamy moments between Edward and Bella that I, especially as a 13-year-old, adored. Number 5 on this list is Breaking Dawn, the fourth and final book in the Twilight Saga. Or in Swedish, it's called As Long As We breed. This is the chunkiest of the books, and here we get the pregnancy story, we get the wedding, and we also get the story told from Jacob's point of view, which is quite interesting. Now, as you know, I am Team Edward, but I could appreciate having Jacob's point of view and getting more insight into the wolf pack. Number 6 on this list goes to The Short Second Life of Bree Tanner. This is a novella in the series that you might have missed, because it was released a while after the first 4 books. But this is a very short novella, about 150 pages, which follows the character Bree, who is mentioned in the Eclipse book. A fun but also sad book with more insight to the newborns and another character introduced to the universe, which is always fun. Number 7 on this list, I unfortunately don't own physically yet, but I did read this as an ebook, and that is Life and Death by Stephanie Meyer. This is an interesting one because it's basically Twilight but gender swapped. Now you might be thinking, Charlotte, you have the same book literally 3 times on this list. You have Twilight, you have Minasan, and now you have Life and Death. You can't be serious. But oh boy, yes I am. I am deadly serious. This book was a very interesting one, and it was Stephanie Meyer proving herself that the story with the vampires and the humans would look just the same if the genders were switched. So in this one, Bella is called Beaufort and is a man, and Edward is called Edith and is a woman. And the story is the same. Edith is a vampire, Beaufort is a human, they meet, they fall in love, Beaufort learns about vampires. The ending of the story is a bit different, which is interesting, and most of the characters are gender swapped, except for Charlie, I believe. It was a fun addition to the universe, to the fandom. She also rewrote some sections, rephrased some paragraphs and stuff, and I thought this was great. I really adored it, so well deserved. Number 7. Number 8 on this list, we have Twilight, the graphic novel, Volume 1. Yes, I have the same story 4 times on this list, sue me. I used to think that I hadn't really read graphic novels, or I didn't read graphic novels, but then I remembered this book, and this is a graphic novel. So I've actually been reading graphic novels for a while, right? This is the, I guess, illustrated Twilight, and it's stunning, but it's only the first half of the book, and I never got the second one. And it's actually really nice, I want to reread this. Number 9 on this list, I own, but unfortunately don't have with me because it's at my parents' place, but that is the Twilight Saga official guidebook. Now, you might think I'm insane for putting a non-fiction on this one. Somehow, a non-fiction made it to this list, it made it to number 9, and this is the official guidebook for the Twilight Saga. So we get a lot more insight into the characters, into Stephanie Meyer's thinking, just the development of the story, which I really appreciated. I really liked having all of these tidbits about the characters. It's a very interesting read and greatly appreciated by real and true fans. So if you are one of those and you somehow missed out on this one, I don't know how you didn't know this existed, but if you did, I would recommend you to read it if you're a Twilight fan. Or if not, it's just a solid read, and I would always encourage you to read more non-fiction, right? And for the final place for this top 10 books of all time, my all-time favorites, on number 10 we have Twilight the Score, music from the motion picture by Carter Burwell. April's Fools! Or Happy April Fools, I don't know what to say. If you didn't get it, this isn't quite that serious. My top 10 books are not all Twilight books. This was just me playing around, having some fun. Please let me know if you would actually like to see a real and true top 10 books of all time. And I might do that someday. Okay, thanks!
You gotta just go for it. Don't think about what comes after.